Welcome to the Michigan Man Podcast on Wolverine Sports Radio, a member of the V Sporto Network, and in partnership with SB Nation's Maize and Brew, for Wolverine fans from coast to coast. Go Blue and welcome to the show. I'm your host, Mike Fitzpatrick. We're taking a break from football this week and turning our attention to red-hot Michigan hoops. Beat writer James Hawkins from the Detroit News will join us in just a moment. First, a few news and notes to get us going. On Sunday at the team banquet, Jim announced he wasn't going anywhere. That shut down the rumor mill for now. Hopefully, it will help out on the recruiting trail as we close this class out too. We lost Dax Hill to Alabama over the weekend, which did come as a surprise. Dax never mentioned why he changed his commitment. Chase Winovich was chosen most valuable player by his teammates at the banquet on Sunday. He said he was honored, of course, and the program he is leaving is in great shape with a big future. Michigan basketball is off to one of the best starts in program history and has been a fun team to watch. We are used to Coach B's team struggling early in the season, then peaking in March, so this has been different. My guest today says this Michigan team is playing defense at an elite level, giving the offense time to develop. Beat writer James Hawkins from the Detroit News is up next here on the Michigan Man on Wolverine Sports Radio, a member of the V Sporto Network, and in partnership with SB Nation's Maize and Brew. Here with us on our Game Day segment this week as we start to turn our attention from football to what's going on in basketball, and there's a lot. Beat writer James Hawkins from the Detroit News.
Good to be back, Mike.
Well, when the season started, I thought this team would struggle early, get better as the season goes along, and peak in March, which we often see with John Beilein teams. But 10-0, that is more than a surprise, isn't it, James?
I think coming into the season, I felt the same way. I thought maybe the early on it was going to be a struggle, but I thought they were going to rely on their defense kind of as they incorporated some of the new faces, with Ignas, Braz, Dacus, and other guys kind of stepping into bigger roles, with Jordan Poole and coming into the starting lineup. And same thing with Teske, taking over a starting role as opposed to, those guys just being backups. So I thought early on it was kind of going to be ugly. Maybe games were going to be, the offense was maybe going to be trying to find its way, but it seems like they've kind of picked right up and, they kind of gelled right away. But I think the one thing that kind of stands out, I think their defense has been even better than I think what maybe most would have anticipated, and I think the biggest reason for that is Jon Teske, just with what he's able to do around the rim and his ability to kind of alter and change shots without drawing fouls. But definitely, I did not see this 10-0 start coming, especially if you look at kind of how their early season schedule was. I think most people that game at Villanova, I don't know how many people expected that type of performance out of Michigan, especially the margin that they won by, and then they kind of followed it up with another impressive win at home against North Carolina. So yeah, definitely, I think 10-0. I mean, that's only the fourth time in program history where they've won their first 10 games to start the season. So it was definitely, I don't think many people anticipated this type of start, but I don't think, think many people would take it.
No, I don't think anyone anticipated this kind of start. And as you just mentioned, James, the key through the first 10 games has been a stifling defense, which can cover a multitude of offensive sins, let your offense gel and come together. To say that this defense has picked up where they left off last year is an understatement. They might even be better.
Yeah, I think they are. It's just because, look, Moritz Wagner was good. What he, offensively, he had a skill set unlike, any other big man in the nation, but Charles Matthews said it after one of the games. He talked about Mo isn't doing what Jon Teske is doing at the rim. His ability to block shots and change everything. And just his frame alone. Having guys, if they come down in the lane, having to shoot over a 7'1" guy if he's just stand there, kind of absorb the contact and try to finish over him. But then again, you brought back Xavier Simpson and Charles Matthews, who are arguably two of the better, on-ball defenders there are in the nation, and then I think Jordan Poole has made strides in that area, and I think his defense has kind of been underrated this season. And then at the 4, I think Ignas Dacus has been better than what people might have thought, especially as a freshman. Michigan coach John Beilein always talks about, defense is kind of the one thing that kind of holds freshmen back from playing time. But, I mean, you saw it in that third game at Villanova when Ignas was guarding Eric Paschal, arguably Villanova's best player, and he kind of gave him a tough time all night long. And then he followed it up, against North Carolina. He was guarding a preseason All-American in Luke May, and he kind of made it tough on him. I think he only finished with 11 points in that game. And then again, it's also, another, they had a whole other off season and a whole other year, and assistant coach Luke Yaklich's system, him getting their defensive principles down and all that. So, and Isaiah Livers said it earlier, they were still trying to, figure everything out and kind of figure out their coverages and their switches on ball screens and stuff like that, midway through last season. So it's kind of, they have all that, experience, and they kind of have all that settled already into this season. I think you're just starting to see, them kind of just build that up.
Well, we all know coaching makes a difference, and you just mentioned Coach Yaklich, hired last year to come in as people say, a defensive specialist, but come on, I mean, you have to at least say now what a difference a great coach can make when he emphasizes something like better defense.
Oh, definitely. I mean, the one thing that Luke always emphasizes is they have certain metrics they want to meet in every game. And I mean, you talk to the players about what they want to record. And I remember asking Xavier Simpson at Big Ten Media Day, and he's just like, they chart stuff that you wouldn't even think is chartable. So I think that just speaks to, Luke Yaklich himself, and I guess just how obsessive he is with the defense. And the one big stat I know that they always chart is contest rate. And I think the North Carolina game, or one of the games, it's like they were contesting, 90% of shots. And after the South Carolina game, Coach Frank Martin was talking about how Michigan has this championship DNA and how, they don't take plays off. And defensively, how tough it is to just get baskets and to score on Michigan. Mm-hmm. I think that just speaks to Michigan, like every single player's ability, that they don't need help, and that they're able to guard their man effectively, and they don't let anybody by them. And I think, obviously that starts with Xavier Simpson. And then also it's just everybody's connected, and they know, and it also helps, every single guy's able to switch. Jon Teske might not get credit for that, but if you look at the end of the Northwestern game, when Northwestern had that final possession, he kind of disrupted that final play by swapping that screen at the top of the key, and he kind of batted the ball away, and that kind of, took away a crucial second or two that kind of forced the rush shot from deep on that final shot by Northwestern. So I think it's just, kind of all the players have kind of grown in Luke's system. I think everybody has grown as a defender, and they all have that capability, and they all have that desire to want to defend. And I think that's kind of a trickle down that kind of starts, with Luke Yaklich, and then it kind of goes through the captains and Xavier Simpson and Charles Matthews.
Well, before the season started, James, there were questions about this offense. I think we all had them. Would this be a team that could shoot from the perimeter effectively from three-point land? Would they be a team that attacked the lane? So far, the answer is they can do both, and pretty well so far.
Yeah, I think more so they've kind of been like you said, a drive and attack type of team, because they have several guys. I mean, if you look at it, seems like no matter who they have on the floor, they have a couple guys who are able to kind of, maybe, whether it's late in the shot clock or if something breaks down, that they have guys, whether it's Ignas, Dacus, or it's Charles Matthews or Xavier Simpson, they have guys that can get into the lane, and they can either, create shots for others or kind of kick out. So I think they're more so of like a driving team. But yeah, they have shown that they can still make the three-pointers. And I think, Isaiah Livers, that's kind of been his bread and butter, is the same thing as last season's kind of that corner three. But then Jordan Poole, I mean, you just look at the last kind of 5 games, he's really taken off. I think he's hit at least 4 threes in 3 of the last 4 games. So he kind of has gotten, more comfortable as being that whole playmaking role, facilitating role. He talked about after the South Carolina game how he was maybe, passing up shots. He was thinking too much about, what's a good shot, what's a bad shot, and maybe trying too hard to get assists rather than, just taking, the open shots when he gets them. So they've shown that they can kind of beat teams in multiple ways. But I think more so I think their offense, they're more so just going to be this kind of attacking, driving team, and that kind of helps open up the threes as opposed to last season where they more so shot the threes to kind of open up lanes for themselves.
Well, James, let's talk about some of the key players and your take on them through 10 games so far this year. Start with Xavier Simpson. What is he doing better this year? Where does he need to improve?
I think the one thing he's doing better is maybe it's just his comfort in the system. But if you look at his every game, I think he has at least 5 assists in every game this season except for 1. So I think he's doing a better job at, kind of spreading the ball. And he's still, does a good job at attacking the lane and finishing with those kind of running sky hooks or hook shots that he does that are so tough to block. I mean, I think he's doing a lot of the same stuff he is last season. It's usually, I mean, if he's getting an open three, he's taking it, and then if not, he's just trying to drive to the lane. I don't really think he's kind of settling for those mid-range jump shots, which I don't think he did at all last season. And then still defensively, he's still, that pitbull, that guy that kind of sets the tone for them and, makes life miserable for whoever he's guarding. And, you can just look at some of the guys he's guarded this season, Kobe White from North Carolina or Carson Edwards for Purdue. He just kind of disrupts that offense and kind of helps, opposing offenses kind of struggle to get into their sets. So I think if I point to the one thing he's probably doing better, it's maybe I think just spreading the ball, like I said, just his assist numbers this season are much improved from last season. And the thing he can do better is obviously shoot the three. I mean, you saw the Northwestern game where they kind of dared him to shoot and they left him open, those 3 straight possessions, and he missed on all 3 of those. So I think becoming more of a perimeter threat, I think, has kind of been something he's been working towards, his entire career at Michigan. But yeah, I don't think anyone's expecting him to sit there and make, threes a game. But I think if defenses make the choice to kind of sag off him like Northwestern did, I think he just has to be able to, knock down one of those threes to maybe just kind of, take them out of that.
Yeah, I know last week Coach B said he was, working at or looking at the angle and the release of Xavier's shots, the 3-point shots. He just looks really uncomfortable out there, though, doesn't he? It's an awkward shot.
It is. He's kind of like, I don't want to say his form's like Muhammad Ali Abdur-Rahman, but his shot takes time to get off like Muhammad Ali Abdur-Rahman's does. So it's not like something where he can just kind of catch and shoot, off a screen or something. He kind of needs to be open for him to get it off. But the one thing I found interesting is that we talked to him, last week, and he talked about how he still has confidence in his shot, but he talked about after the Northwestern game, he might have been deterred or discouraged after, maybe he missed that first 3 to not shoot again. But he says he has more confidence in his shot, so that's why he kept shooting those 3s when he was left open. And Coach Beilein said, every time he released it, he thought it was going in. And Coach Beilein's seen plenty of shooters throughout his coaching career, and he says he can typically tell, when someone releases it if it's going to be good or not. And so he was a little befuddled why everything just kept seeming to just be a hair off. Xavier said the same thing on, at least 3 or 4 of those 3s he shot that game. He thought they were all going in, and they just weren't dropping. So I guess that's a positive sign that, he doesn't feel like there's something wrong. He feels like it's all right on. But I'm not sure. I don't think it's kind of been an ongoing theme throughout his career. I think he's only like a career 27% 3-point shooter. So I don't think he's going to turn into this, 40% 3-point shooter all the time. But I don't know. I just don't think that's his strong suit. I think his strong suit offensively is more so just kind of just getting to the lane, getting by defenders, and just his ability to finish at the rim is, I guess, what his best attribute he brings to the offense.
Well, Charles Matthews has been giving us a great D as always. His offense has been solid, but I get the feeling there's more to come from him offensively this year, James.
Yeah, he's kind of followed a similar path as last season. He's kind of, had these up and down stretches. He kind of got off to a good start early on, and then he's kind of hit a few rough spots these past 2 games. I think Northwestern, he only scored 3 points, and South Carolina followed it up with 12 points. But yeah, I think the one thing he said coming into the season he wants to show is that he's more of a consistent 3-point shooter, because that was the most common feedback he got when he went through the NBA draft process, and he wants to be more of a consistent perimeter threat from outside and from 3-point range. But I think it's kind of one of those things, if you just look at this team, it's kind of going to be a different guy every night. And you saw it early on, it seemed like Ignas, Braz, Dacus, and Charles Matthews, it was kind of flipping between those 2 guys. And then, as I alluded to earlier, kind of Jordan Poole's kind of taken off these last 5 games. So I think it just depends on the game and how opponents are playing them, who kind of, takes over, kind of carries the load that night. And I mean, Charles has shown he's capable of doing so, doing that, when he's called upon. But yeah, definitely, I think offensively he has more that he can bring. But the one thing I think that that he's shown, it seems like it's been an unblockable shot. If he kind of has that little fadeaway jumper in the lane that he's kind of knocked down early on in the season, which I feel like is pretty tough for opponents to guard. But yeah, like I said, I just think he's going to have his ups and downs like anybody. But I think it's more so just depending on how teams are keying in on him, and it's kind of just Michigan's ability to have multiple guys kind of step up each night. So I think that's maybe what you're seeing with Charles. I think if people are expecting him to score 20 points a game, I don't think that's not going to happen. But I mean, he certainly is capable of doing that. And it just depends on how opponents are guarding him and keying in on each guy.
Well, I've been so impressed with Jon Teske so far this year. He's stronger. He's more confident. He's really become a force on both ends of the floor, James, hasn't he?
Definitely, yeah. I think if you want to, looking at this start ahead, if you want to, point to maybe who's been the most valuable player, you can certainly make a case for any of the starting five, but I think my pick would be Jon Teske, just because as we were talking about, I mean, no disrespect to Mo Wagner, but he wasn't doing and not making the type of impact that Jon Teske is on defense, and that's what this team has been built on over this, this 10-game start. And then, yes, offensively, he's, you just look at kind of the pick and roll, like anytime they run a high pick and roll with either Xavier Simpson or Charles Teske, just how deadly that's been. And it seems like it's been unguardable. I mean, because you have, whoever has the ball, they're capable of just, driving down and scoring. But then even when they dump it off to Teske, he's been able to finish. And he's shown an impressive ability to finish, like those lob passes around the rim. He kind of finished a couple difficult ones in the South Carolina game. He's made some, going out and catching them and finishing them off balance and falling to the ground. And he's also, shown that he can knock down threes. And, coming into the season, he mentioned that wasn't his role. He was more so just kind of a guy, trying to battle on the glass and extend, get second possessions or, just grab rebounds. But he's shown that he can kind of pop out and knock down the three, knock down, the perimeter jumper. And he's definitely been more aggressive. And I think if you want to point to a sign of that, you can just look at the South Carolina game, when he got that one bounce pass, from the free throw line, and he tried to dunk it over a defender when he drew the foul. I mean, no one would have expected him to even attempt that last season, but I think that just shows, how he's grown as a defender and, what he's able to do on the offensive end. And the one thing is you can look back to when they played the tip-off tournament in Connecticut. I mean, he could go scoreless one day, but then he could score a career high to 17 the next, and he's still able to make an impact, whether he's scoring or whether he's not. But like I said, I think if you just want to look at, maybe who might be the most valuable player for the team this season, I think it could be Jon Teske. And again, if you just look at, when he was off the floor at Northwestern, kind of when Austin Davis was in there, it seemed like every time Jon Teske was on the bench, that was when Northwestern made a run. And then, just the instant, Jon Teske checks back in, how different the team is and how quickly everything changes. So he's definitely, the impact he has made on both ends of the floor has been, I think, probably the most critical to Michigan's success so far this season.
No, I think another critical piece has been Jordan Poole. And he's a kid, I have to say, coming into the season, I just wasn't sure about. And I can't say I'm completely sold on him yet, but I thought maybe he'd be a nice piece off the bench. I just didn't know if he would be a go-to kind of a starter. But, the kid has no fear. We know that. He's a scorer, and he's playing much better defense than I expected. He's right now just a flat-out player.
Right, yeah, he's made strides in all areas. And I think if you looked at, the roster coming into the season, I thought that Jordan Poole kind of had the most, if you're just in terms of statistics, I think he was probably the player who had the most, he would make the biggest leap statistically, just because, when he was playing behind Muhammad Ali Abdur-Rahman, who was playing, 35 minutes a game or something, he had, he would have the biggest opportunity, the most minutes he would kind of pick up this season. But yeah, I think, early on, like we were talking about earlier, I think he was kind of adjusting to this role because they want him to be more of a facilitator, more of a playmaker, helping. We all know he can create his own shot, but the big key they wanted is for him to, kind of create shots for others. And that was kind of something he was maybe overthinking or thinking about too much early on, trying to figure out, find that balance between, creating for himself and, when's the right chance to create for others. But I feel like, if you just look at his stats over the last 5 games, he's averaging almost 19 points a game. He's shooting, over 60% from the field and from 3-point range, which is absurd to think about. And yeah, like you said, he's not fearless. I mean, he shoots these dizzying amount of step back threes, which is crazy. And the range he's shooting them from, well behind 3-point range. I mean, he's shooting it from 3-4 feet behind the line. It's absurd, but I think we have just seen him. He's kind of grown into his role, but more importantly, he's kind of grown into this consistent scoring option as of late. When early on, over the first 5 games or so, it was Ignas, Braz, Dacus, and Charles Matthews who were really shouldering the scoring load for the team. But I mean, Jordan, as of late, he's kind of shown that he can kind of, be that consistent third threat that they need. And then, as we talked about on defense, he's definitely grown. I mean, John Beilein, mentioned, defense wasn't, his priority even on his mind much last season. When he came in, he was maybe playing, only 10, 11 minutes a game. So he was more so focused on, putting up shots when he got them because, he didn't know, when his opportunities were really going to come. But yeah, you look at that Purdue game, he kind of made a play where he contested a guy. He met a guy at the rim after, a blown coverage or a blown defensive assignment, drew a charge on Carson Edwards. I mean, I don't think those are plays he was making last season, but I think that, speaks to the, himself committing himself, buying into defense, but then also you look kind of where it starts. I think Xavier Simpson and Charles Matthews, they kind of demand people to play defense. And if you're going to be on the floor with them, they're going to expect you to play defense. And I think, you can just look at Jordan Poole, the strides he's made defensively as being a primary example of that.
Well, the freshman that has just, I think, surprised all of us is Ignas Braz. We knew coming in he was very, very talented. And he is a 20-year-old freshman, and that does make a difference. 2 years, instead of being 18, he's 20, so he's a very seasoned, strong kid. What a start for him, James.
Yeah, coming into the season, that was the guy maybe people thought was going to be the sixth man, the first guy off the bench. But then, Isaiah Livers suffered kind of an ankle injury in the off season or right when practices started up. So that gave, Ignas Braz more of a chance to kind of work at the 4. And then he just found this comfort with the, with the starting unit. So then, John Beilein just kind of decided to roll with him in the starting lineup. But yeah, I mean, he has definitely been as good as advertised. If you looked at, his clips or any film from, from his high school or from AAU or whatever, he has definitely been as good as advertised. And he is another guy who is just, we talked about Jordan Poole being fearless. I mean, Ignas Braz is not afraid of anybody, whether that's on defense or offense. And I think the one thing he does so well is he is relentless at attacking the rim. If he gets a step on somebody, he is going in the lane. And the one thing I've been impressed about the most with him is just his ability to finish not only through contact, which usually results in him flexing, especially if he hits an and one layup, but just his ability to finish with either hand at the rim. It's pretty incredible to watch, whether he switches hands, his ability to, if it's coming from the left side to finish with his left hand, or if he's driving, to knock down with his right. I mean, if you could look at the Northwestern game where he kind of helped, it seemed like he always got a tough basket when Michigan needed it. There was one play where he hit a floater with his right hand, and then he comes back down the next possession and he hits a fall away baseline jumper. Obviously he's left-handed. So his ambidextrous ability is really, really incredible to watch. And as I just alluded to, the one thing too that he seems to have a knack for is when Michigan their offense is maybe struggling or they seem like they're desperate for a shot, he seems to be the guy who, I don't know if he puts it upon himself or if he just, likes those moments, but he seems to be the guy when they need a basket. He has been the guy that's been getting them that. I mean, you can look to the North Carolina game when he drew that early foul and he was on the bench and North Carolina kind of made that run and they went up by 10. And then the minute he checked back in, I think it was he came down and hit a layup, and then he hit a three-pointer right on the next possession, and then right there started like a 17-2 run or 19-2 run and completely flipped the game. And then he did the same thing at Northwestern. It was kind of when they went on that run to kind of cut down Michigan's lead. It seemed like it was Iggy every time stuff seemed to kind of hit a rough patch or adversity started to hit. He seemed to be the guy who would just get into the lane and make a bucket. So I think that's kind of been what has stood out to me the most with him so far with his start.
Well, another player I wanted to give credit to for his contributions, probably my favorite player for a lot of reasons, Isaiah Livers. He's just kind of a Swiss Army knife. Coach B can do just about anything he wants with him.
Yeah, definitely. I think the biggest credit to him is that he kind of took on this six-man role. He doesn't seem to, he didn't pout or complain that Ignas Dacus came in and took his spot, considering Isaiah took over that starting role midway last season from Duncan Robinson. But yeah, definitely Isaiah he is a versatile piece. We saw that he can play, if Michigan decides to go small, he can play the 5. He can actually play the 3, 4, or 5, so he can play 3 different positions. He knows, all the coverages, all the switches defensively to play those positions. And he gives, Michigan another floor spacing option. As we know, he like we said earlier, that corner 3 really seems to be his bread and butter. And I mean, he knocked down, 4 threes against South Carolina, and he hit a couple big threes late when South Carolina was hanging around and hitting those tough baskets to kind of stick around. He kind of helped kind of put the game away there. But yeah, definitely the versatility Isaiah provides is key, because like we said, he can, if they decide to go small, that small ball lineup that they used this season has been, I don't know like the plus minus for it or how much they've outscored people, but it has been tough for opposing teams to guard. And just when that lineup is on the floor defensively, it's giving teams problems just because of Isaiah's ability to switch everything, switch screens, switch and rotate when that lineup's on the floor. But yeah, I think I've been impressed with how Isaiah, he's kind of, just taking on this role. He embraces it. He doesn't seem to mind coming off the bench. Definitely coming off the bench, he gives Michigan a vital piece, both on defense, a guy who can guard multiple positions, and then on offense, he's a guy who can, obviously knock down the 3 and help space the floor.
Developing some depth in the rotation, James, is something Coach B wants to work on in December. Does this team need more than a 7-man rotation once the Big Ten season arrives to compete?
I don't know about that. I think the thing is that John Beilein wants to just have guys ready in case, because we know the Big Ten season can be a grind. So, I mean, you look at the starters, it seems like every guy's playing, 30-plus minutes a game. So I think he just wants to get the two main guys, the 2 main freshmen he wants to get ready just in case are, forward Brandon Johns Jr. and then guard David DeJulius, to have them ready just in case of, if a guy's slumping, if there's foul trouble, if there's an injury. Certainly they have proven they do not need more than a 7-man rotation. And that could be the case throughout the Big Ten season. They might not go more than 7 or 8 guys deep in a game. I think the thing is that just John Beilein wants to have guys, ready to step in if they need to, maybe for stretches, whether it's, a 4-minute stretch or a 5-minute stretch, like we said, if foul trouble creeps up, if it's, a guy's just having an off night, he's just not making much of an impact, to maybe just come in. But I don't think they need to have more than a 7-man rotation. As we've seen, they've done quite fine without it so far. I think it's more so just kind of having that, these options at the ready in case, stuff happens, maybe unexpected, like we said, an injury or something happens, that they can have guys ready to step in at a moment's notice. But they have proven, I mean, just look at the scores so far. I mean, they've won almost every game by double digits so far, that they can definitely make it work. But yeah, the 2 guys that they want to get ready is, Brandon Johns and David DeJulius, because Brandon can play maybe those backup minutes behind Teske if they don't, want to go small with Isaiah at the 5. He would probably take over those minutes that Austin Davis has been getting. And then David DeJulius could provide, give Xavier Simpson a breather, maybe for a couple minutes at a time if needed. And but the thing about too at the point guard is that David has so much more to learn. Obviously, commanding the offense, and then Michigan also has several other options they can go to at the point if Xavier has to sit. Whether that's Eli Brooks. He obviously started there last season. He knows the offense and he can run it. And then they've also at times had Jordan Poole just push the ball up the floor. They don't really need a point guard on the floor per se. They just need a guy to kind of get them in there if they're running their half-court offense, just to get them in their half-court set. So I think Brandon might be the guy who's maybe would be the first person you'd see kind of get into the rotation if he's able to crack it, just because he doesn't have as much to learn as David and Julius. But then I know David is another guy that they're trying to get up to speed and bring along as soon as possible, just so they have those options if they need them. But I think the 7-man rotation they have has been working just fine so far.
Well, we have 3 games left in December, a lot of time for practice, which I know Coach B talked about last week, that he likes that. A lot of things to work on. Then in January, of course, it gets real with a very, very tough Big Ten schedule. With us today, for really the first time since the football season ended, we've talked hoops, and I think it's just going to be a great season. Our guest has been beat writer James Hawkins from the Detroit News. James, as always, thank you for your time, and as soon as we roll into the new year, we'll get you back.
All right, sounds good. Thanks for having me, Mike.
Quick Hits is next as we wrap it up for another week here on The Michigan Man on Wolverine Sports Radio, a member of the V Sporto Network, and in partnership with SB Nation's Maize and Brew. On Quick Hits today, practice is underway for the Peach Bowl. I suppose we'll find out in the coming days if any other players will be sitting out to avoid injury. As of this morning, only Rashawn Gary is not going to play. In the coming weeks, we'll have our bowl preview shows and an early signing show with Steve Lorenz from 24/7 Sports. After the new year, we'll always have football news, but the focus of the show is going to turn to Michigan basketball and what should be a fun season as Coach B does his magic. So make sure you tune us in each week for that. It's going to be a busy winter on the Michigan sports scene. That's it for this week, though. I'm your host, Mike Fitzpatrick. Have a great Wolverine week, everyone. Until next time, take care, and as always, go blue. Thanks for joining us today on The Michigan Man, here on Wolverine Sports Radio, a member of the V Sporto Network, and in partnership with SB Nation's Maize and Brew. Our listener lines are open 24/7 for your calls at 313-263-4842. That's 313-263-4842. Or email us at themichiganmanpodcast@yahoo.com. That's themichiganmanpodcast@yahoo.com. The Michigan Man Podcast is produced at the studios of Robin Lynn Productions, Allen Park, Michigan, and is not affiliated with the University of Michigan. Go Blue!